Welcome to Spark Love. I'm Sumi.
And I'm Ray.
We created this space to share how we took our relationship from toxic to extraordinary.
To be able to improve, we gotta talk, and that's what we're here for.
Come with us on a journey where we will openly discuss all of our challenges and our stories. This is Spark Love.
Welcome to Spark Love. My name is Ray, and I'm here with my beautiful partner Sumi, smiling there the whole time. Welcome to another episode. This is number 3, and we will be talking about how your beliefs around relationships are shaped and what impact they have in your relationship life.
Hi everyone, Sumi here. Thank you for the lovely introduction. So, what is in it for you guys for being here for this podcast and listening till the end? In my opinion, it is very interesting to have a different perspective on the beliefs that our relationships go through and what is created through our experiences and our past, our childhood, and how that impacts the relationships that we have today. And so we are sharing our perspective, what has helped us and the people that I've worked with and the people around us that we care about, that we've shared this information with. And so what's in it for you guys is a different perspective on how beliefs can shape your relationships and how they were shaped in the first place and what the impact is.
So for every decision that you make consciously or even subconsciously, there are beliefs behind how you feel, what you think is right and wrong. There are so many different things going on in the back of your mind that most of us don't realize and take a minute to look at, this is what I think, one, and second, why do I think like that? Where does it come from? Like,
what is the story that I created?
How did I come to the point of believing this is what I believe? So
what small event created a ripple effect, created a story that you tell yourself as to why whatever happened means this and this and this and this. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve love. Relationships are meant to be a certain way. They're meant to be peaceful all the time, or they are meant to be two people coming together to kind of give each other some kind of false sense of happiness because you're looking for it in someone when you're not finding it in yourself. And so there's many beliefs and we're going to touch on them.
Right, so we actually have a very interesting list because it's questions. So we'll go through those questions and explain a little bit of each, but later on we're gonna answer those questions ourselves, from a story time point of view. But for now we're gonna go through the list and just give our take on each one of those. So this is the first the first question to ask around this subject is, what are the earliest memories?
I just wanted to mention that this is a list of questions that I put together for a training that I did.
Oh, that's true.
So I put these lists of questions together for you guys to. I did these for myself, and quite a lot of people have done it in the training that I did, and so I decided to add it to this little podcast here. So
Thank you for that.
So that you guys can try it out, because I was very impressed and shocked by the answers to my own.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
So
and
go for it.
Yeah, most times we don't ask these questions to ourselves. So the first one on this list is, what are the earliest memories you have about love? And who knows, maybe when you're 3 years old, 1.5 years old, somewhere before 7 or 8 years old, you've had the first memory that you can remember if you make a good effort and go back and you can find them. And if you cannot, there's some techniques to get there. But the truth is that those memories exist, and if you figure them out and understand them and maybe approach them from a different angle, then your beliefs could change dramatically in everything. It has a ripple effect in your life. If one event around love was traumatic or something in your early childhood, it is possible that it has a negative impact on any type of love relationship you establish. So that's the very first question to ask.
Which goes in alignment, actually, what you explained with was, what were the relationships around you like? So it goes in alignment with what you said, but this is, what did you experience around you when you were growing up? What were the romantic relationships or love relationships around you like? Were they toxic to witness? Were they loving and understanding and peaceful? Was there a lot of fighting, abuse, drama, running out on each other, coming back? What was the love around you like? Your parents, friends, family, just what you saw, grandparents. And then there's on top of that, which is culture. Like, what do you watch on TV? What did you consume? What were your parents watching? Was it like this, the soapies with the horribly toxic relationship scenes where they literally just play out the worst possible scenes they could out of what a relationship looks like, and we consume this. We are,
as little kids, right?
As little kids, we are so what's the word? Impressionable. We're so impressionable. So we consume, we're consuming whatever we see around us. We're consuming. We're shaping our beliefs. So this is another, how are our beliefs shaped? And I had some, we'll get to this in story time, but I have some interesting...
Disney Channel prominent there for most.
So it is, what were the relationships around you like? Not just what you had in your physical space, but what were you consuming outside of your intimate relationships? Which leads us to number 3.
Yeah, so it's partially covered, but as you were growing up, what did your parents, family, friends, media, culture, society tell you about love and relationships? So now you understand it comes from all those sources, and you have identified them, and now you need to interpret what is the message, right? What is it that you interpret from all these different sources? And
what were you actually told? What were you told by them? Did your parents say things to you about relationships? Like, this is how relationships are meant to be? What was the verbal direction in your beliefs to relationships from all these different areas, right? So what was the actual direct communication that was being shared? And then, like Ray said, what is
it supposed to be, or in your life, how it has meant to be like from your parents and your school and the TV you watch? What is it supposed to be? And what is it really for you also? Because chances are it's not 100% the same that you have been told.
Not even
sometimes
close.
The opposite, 100%. So, or anything in between in any case. So it is important to understand what it is that it's supposed to be the right thing for you according to others, family, friends, religion, the society, and the groups that you are part of. What do they say it should be like? And also, what is it for you on those important things, those important areas? Relationship is the one we're discussing. So what have you been told, and what do you really think it should be? And you need to have those two.
What is your gut instinct? Because this is something that, I've been discovering this in the last 2 years a lot more than normal, but, listening to your gut instinct about something that you are feeling is real, but you know that it's not necessarily accepted, or, there's that fear of judgment or fear of, rejecting a society norm about something. but being scared of it because it's so wrong in society. So it's a belief that was put there by other people, TV, whatever. And then when you start feeling these hunches in you that you don't actually agree with certain things, it can be scary. So
and it can freak out people around you.
Like, oh my goodness, are you okay? What's going on?
Yeah. Well, it's part of the work. So the next one is,
what was your first relationship like, and how did it end?
so it's not the story, it's just
No. So think about your first relationship. Usually when we get into our first relationship, we're like so in love, like the kiddie love, right? We're so in love, depending on what age you were at. But that teenager, childlike excitement of the first relationship, and this person's like a angel to you or something. They are just like, ah. So you're super in love with your first partner, or your first little boyfriend girlfriend relationship, or your first serious relationship, and you put this person on a pedestal. But there's a lot of things that tend to happen in this relationship and caused it to come to an end. And we don't usually think about it, but it's your first experience. And if it was a toxic experience, if it was a painful experience, the beliefs you're going to come out of that first relationship with are not going to help you for your next relationships. They're going to be toxic, and they're going to be detrimental in some cases to your next relationship, which could actually cause you to then have this like ripple effect of moving from relationship to relationship and gathering negative beliefs as you go along, because our mind tends to attach to the negative. So it pays attention to the negative because it has to build a list of things to avoid. So you can have amazing experiences, but if the bad ones are not worked through or paid attention to, because these things don't disappear with time, they need to be addressed in whatever way works best for you. There's many different ways. Many people out there have different ways. It's about trying until something works for you. And that first relationship is super important. So
especially how it ends, because
how it ends. So think about it. This is a challenging one. Like, it was challenging for me to think about this one. So yeah, definitely go for that and see how it is.
Right. Well, so the next on the list is, what is the first memory you have of fighting, sadness or heartbreak in a relationship? Fighting is a normal thing to happen in any relationship, especially if you're a teenager, like in your first relationship. You fight with everyone. You're a teenager, right? So this is normal, but there is something there that we are creating by engaging into this type of dynamic from so early, that is, it has some consequences. Think about this. You have someone you care about, you have someone whose opinion you care about telling you ugly things about you, because you're fighting.
Yeah.
Fighting is a lot about that, telling each other ugly things.
And attaching to those things.
And then those things just accumulate in your subconscious, like, you this, you suck, you're so selfish.
And this question is not only for in your own relationship, but like,
like in your parents, people around you, like people
what
fighting.
You witnessed. What is the first experience you had around this?
A classic example for this one is people who say, I don't want to get married, and when they dig deep, many times they are afraid of their marriage failing like their parents did.
Yeah,
it's a very common pattern.
I had we'll get to story time, but I have something for a story time for that.
Sure, we all do, baby. This is so rich.
Yeah, we all have so many, guys.
Okay, so
this is the kind of thing that we'd love for you guys to drop in the comments. Like, what are your stories? What are your stories? What are your beliefs that you were?
Yeah, I guess we should share the questions.
Yeah,
right?
we'll put them in the comments.
That should be an interesting discussion. Right, so the next on the list is,
what are the top 3 things you feel most afraid of or are insecure about when it comes to relationships? This one is the most challenging in my opinion, because this one requires being super real with yourself about your fears and your insecurities, which is not something that usually is comfortable for us. So for maybe for some people this is a comfortable question to answer and they're already very aware of it, but I know that for me, for the first time, it was uncomfortable. So I guess the first time for everyone is uncomfortable, right? Then the more you do it, the more you face these things, the more you can move through them because you're aware of them.
Release the weight they have on you.
Yeah. So the more you can talk about them and be open, like anything. This is actually a topic that we should. Maybe our next episode is going to be conversations.
Intimate, honest,
yeah,
warm conversation.
Understanding, compassionate. So yes, what are the top 3 things that you're most afraid or insecure of when it comes to relationships? Because again, these things have been developed by your experiences, what you've witnessed, what you soaked up from media and culture for all of us. It builds fears and insecurities about yourself, like your partner, like somebody else, just, like attraction. It's a normal thing. Normal for people to have some form of attraction. We were actually laughing about the idea of like you be with a person and then the attraction like gets switched off, just like a click, like on off. And then when you break up, then it goes back on. Like it's a constant thing.
It's a hormonal system. It's not like you can control it by command.
We are all biologically designed to be this way, but yet culture and has been constructed in a way that makes it wrong. And so when you're in a relationship and your partner has some kind of attraction, finds another girl pretty or a guy attractive, and there is this instant like putting yourself in a position of like feeling afraid, like feeling insecure that does this mean that I'm not good enough? Does this mean that he doesn't like me enough? Because we're told that it has to be one person. You have to be attracted to one person, the only person. Like
there are a few exceptions.
There are some.
There are some societies that have some different rules, but mostly in favor of the man.
Yeah.
And quite barbaric to the Western eye. Like it is. Most of the Western culture sees it in a similar way, and that's an important belief. I think we have maybe like gone through these questions and everything, but didn't really like stop to describe what beliefs in a relationship are. Like to summarize it, maybe how would you put it? I would say it's like the operating system running for you about that subject. Relationships, okay, what's good, what's bad, you do this and this and then this is like something that is already written in the back of your head.
There's so many layers.
You just operate.
We operate so little on conscious mind thoughts and decisions, and we are mostly operating from unconscious past triggers, behaviors. Autopilot. Our brain has constructed. There's so many studies about this. I have read so many interesting studies about it, watched some super cool videos. One of my favorites is Russell Brand. He has some super cool.
Yeah, Russell Brand and Mark Manson. Current favorite.
So, it is just. I lost my train of thought.
Your operating system. Your autopilot.
So it is an autopilot. We do run a lot on our past experiences, and for the most part, we're just kind of taught to ignore them and just go carry on and just ignore. And I don't think, from our experience, I know many people have different theories about this, and like we said, there's nothing that works for everyone. Like this is a strong belief in both of us nothing is solid. Like, there is no black and white. It's not like because I say this worked for me that now I think this works for everyone in the planet. That is not even ideally remotely a possibility. Like, people are so different in everything. And then another thing is, which we'll get to at some point, but types of relationships. Like we said, there are so many different types of relationships. And for some reason, like we're saying, it's just, it is such a strong belief that there only has to be one type of relationship for everyone in the world. Like, all 7.8 billion of y'all have the exact same way of wanting to have a relationship because we said so. It's not the way it is. There's many different cultures, different people, tribes that practice different things, that have different types of relationships, and it's all okay. So a relationship has to be what you want it to be, not what the world has told us, and we've like created all these beliefs around it, this operating system that says this is what it needs to be like, and if it isn't, I'm somehow less. I am not good enough. I don't check the boxes enough. Like, I'm a failure of a human because I don't want all these corny relationship things. When it could just be what it is to you and your partner. And so, yeah, relationship beliefs are the construct by which you operate 100%. The thoughts that you have on your partner.
Well, like 95, I think it
95.
is.
Your partner, the thoughts that you have around your partner's behavior, the way that they show up. You create stories around your partner's behavior that is your beliefs as well, your past beliefs, your past relationships. Whenever your partner does something, if you have a very bad belief about it in the past, you're going to remember that, and it's going to drive your behavior or create a story that might not even exist in today's world, but in your past that existed, and your mind is like, hey, red light,
Yeah.
red light. So the beliefs about how you guys interact as a couple, what's acceptable to you guys, like within your guidelines of your relationship. I don't like the word rules much. I think like not even guidelines.
It's just agreements.
Yeah,
I think.
agreements. That's the best word.
I remember the first time I listened to Terence McKenna. He was a chemical engineer, I think, or something from the US, who became more or less a preacher because he said things that made a lot of sense and people were always wanting to listen to him. He was like in the 90s, and then he unfortunately died of cancer. But this guy had a very, popular talk on YouTube that was about culture. And it starts by saying culture is not your friend. It is for the benefit of whoever created it. But did you create your own culture? No, it was some group of people many, many years ago. And then it's slowly shaping and getting updated, but around the interests of someone who's not you specifically, right? And you don't represent the typical interests, what's behind the culture. It benefits people high up, like people in position of authority and power and rich. So if it's not in your favor, why is it running your relationships, your everything, your life? It is, culture has a huge impact in what we think we like, and what we actually like might be something else. It has a huge impact in inner conflict, because many times your intuition, which is, it's sometimes hard to differentiate between your intuition and your cultural programming, like
your trauma is like what you're running away from.
It's tricky. It's probably a forever game to discern between is it your intuition or your fears and traumas.
And you're gonna make mistakes for sure. We all make mistakes.
So this is like
have made many.
This is like understanding the brain a little bit. Like, yes, you can explain how the brain works. That doesn't mean you can use it better.
Doesn't mean you're, always going to be 100%. This is a completely different topic, but it is something that it's a very shocking thing, I would say, in the coaching, mentoring industry, particularly online. The belief that if you're a coach, you don't need a coach. Like, you know, you don't need it. Like, you have it, you have the skills. Why would I need a coach? I am a coach. So I used to think like this too. So I'm not saying this because I had my moment in which I was like, oh yeah, well, you know, but this is because when you're trained about this, you get taught this. Like, it's a very bizarre concept within the coaching world. But anyway.
That's because of repetition. There's like several ways in which we get programmed, so to speak, which is like getting your beliefs shaped. And in relationships, it happens mostly through what we witnessed in our homes, like you said, like around like our parents and or you know, relationships that we witnessed. And then as teenagers, first relationship, it starts shaping. It's like a bunch of lines in a list of things that says, if this situation, this is what I think is good. If this situation, this is what I expect. You have like a list of beliefs, and that creates a system, right? Like Ralph Smart says, a BS, belief system. The good news is that you can change it. There really is the possibility to replacing the meaning of things, looking at things once again and internalize it and slowly change your mind, so to speak, in a direction that is more aligned with you and what you in the present need to be, rather than what a group of people decided for you it should be like.
And it's not about shutting down your beliefs. It's about becoming aware of them. It's about observing them and seeing them for what they are, and looking at what story you created around this observation, and does this serve you, or is this causing conflict within your relationship or within yourself? So it leads you to negative beliefs about relationships, and so
some of them can become toxic, right?
Yeah, some of them are very toxic, and if not paid attention to or spoken about with yourself and your partner, can lead to unnecessary complications. So we're gonna give you some. This is like a collaboration of finding out from the people that I've worked with and from reading online surveys and articles about what are some of the toxic beliefs for relationships. So we have like a pool of different people's answers here. So we're going to share them with you. We have 10 toxic ones and 10 healthy ones. And we're just going to quickly read them through for you guys. And just pay attention, maybe what comes up. Like when we read them, just pay attention if something comes up for you around that one. Like, are you feeling any kind of uncomfort? Do you feel any like slight trigger? Like, what is it? Do you feel completely neutral? Did you used to feel like that and now you're okay? Because this happens, we change our beliefs. So just kind of pay attention to how it feels. Do you want to go? Yeah,
so let me start with number 1. Your happiness is the responsibility of the other person. And not much to say about that. If you expect that your happiness needs to be provided by your partner, that's not a convenient and healthy thing to believe. And number 2, relationship should always be struggle and drama-free. And it's not a realistic expectation. That's not how we work, humans. And actually, without struggle and drama, we wouldn't be able to grow out of that struggle and become better at it and more, get to understand yourself and why you struggle so that you can stop struggling. It's beneficial. So it's not a healthy belief to think relationship should not have any struggle, no drama, not always happy.
Yeah, like the Mark Manson was doing a video about this. I was watching it in the week where he was saying that the pursuit of a negative experience is ultimately a positive experience. And the pursuit of a positive experience ultimately turns into a negative experience.
Yeah, that's a brilliant concept.
Sorry.
Yeah, so in this case, it's a toxic one to say, oh no, there shouldn't be all this struggle. If there's struggle, that means this is not the one person.
Yeah, and then that means that you're never fully open to, and I don't think it's possible to ever be with someone because we're from such different places and backgrounds that it's just not possible. Like I don't think it's physically possible to find someone that you guys are gonna be.
I mean, think about this. There can be twin siblings. Twin siblings will fight.
They're gonna fight. They're different. It's normal. Animals do it, and ultimately we're mammals.
We're mammals. Yeah, we still continue. Well, some of our programming is not even cultural; is genetic. And it comes from that, and it runs the show a lot too. So a lot of your subconscious autopilot is animal instinct also kicking in, so to keep in mind.
Okay, so number 3 is once your trust has been broken, all hope is lost for your relationship. So this one is interesting because it's also not true in our opinion. Our experience has showed that is not the case. It is a lot about love and understanding and acceptance. And trust does not need to come from a place of like, you did this thing to me, that means I don't trust you, but more understanding why this thing happened, discussing it, being open about it, figuring out why it happened in the first place, what led to it happening, because there's so much richness there and growth and awareness in what you are both going through. Because if trust was broken, there is something that is going on that is not openly being discussed.
Yeah,
and so to fix trust, in my opinion, you need to speak about things openly 100%, no matter how uncomfortable they are. Once trust is broken, you can still come back to speaking about it. Figuring out why it was like that in the first place, and then how do we prevent it by openly communicating it.
So then the toxic belief is once trust has been broken, all hope is lost for your relationship. I can propose replacing it once trust has been broken. It's a calling for sitting down and being honest. And it's an invitation to take your relationship to a new level of honesty. And that should indeed turn into something healthy, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that reveals separation, that needs to separate, that would be unfortunate. But if that is what an honest series of conversations without fighting as much as possible, just exploring why the
blame and
really understand why it happened, why that trust was broken. And there's this silly example. For example, some people we know they were doing a diet, and the guy would secretly go and buy stuff in the shop, like something very cheap, and eat it quickly on his way home, and he kept it a secret. And it's a silly thing. It might not mean anything, but in a way it also means breaking the trust in your relationship, because you kept me out of the circle. You were doing this. You had your own agenda. So even the tiniest things can trigger someone, whereas some people are completely irresponsive to that. Like, I don't care about that. If you had sex with someone, I would care. But if you ate a candy, then I don't. So there's everything in between.
Yeah, and that's also important to know, because I think that also, like a lot of the times why trust is broken in the first place is because there's not really the conversation about what it is to... I was having a conversation with someone where he mentioned that it's very clear to him that loyalty is not the same thing for him and his wife. They have different concepts of what loyalty means. And that doesn't make one better than the other. It doesn't mean like, oh, you have this definition and this one just goes more with society, that you're right, and the person who's got a different, maybe alternative concept of it, but definitely maybe more healthier, is the one that gets shut down because it's scary, it's uncomfortable, but there's this different concept, and that discussion is so important, because if you have that belief, then you can really learn a lot and change a lot in your relationship.
Sorry, we're going so long on the same one. I have one more example for the trust case that is not around like being faithful or like monogamy and those areas. But I thought of something we watch in a series actually, that the woman in the relationship, she had huge credit card debt, and they were applying for a loan together, and that's how her husband found out that his wife had a humongous credit card debt.
The banker was.
And now they share this debt. It affects his credit. So this would be really like trust breaking for a relationship.
Yeah.
Like, how the hell did I not know about this? How little do you trust me?
And they were together for like 12 years.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a TV show, but the story seems perfectly plausible to happen in real life. 1,000 people already.
You know, if this is something interesting I've said, but if you watch it in a movie, it's because it exists in real life. Like,
most times,
people,
unless it's like aliens or
crazy aliens,
sci-fi
like, people
stuff,
come up with it. But if it's like people,
but that expected to happen.
It's
eventually.
expected to happen. So you never know. Maybe in 10 years or 20 years from now, we'll be like, oh, remember that time when it was just imagination and now it really exists, kind of like that. Okay, work number 4, guys. Toxic relationship, no, belief number 4. Work, children, and friends are all more important than time spent on your relationship. So, this is a big one because we have so many beliefs around what work needs to be in relation to our relationships and children and our friends. There is this belief that we need to give certain amounts of attention to certain things because they have more priority, because your partner is with you. They live with you. They're married to you. So they're with you regardless of anything. But I'm here to say that from my point of view and from what I've experienced and witnessed is that's not the case, guys. It is so important for us to pay attention to our relationships, no matter how tough work is, no matter how many kids you have, your friends, like a relationship it's there. Not just because your partner and you are together every day means that you're spending time on your relationship. You are co-living. You live together. You live your life together. But that does not mean that you're
mentioned
spending...
this in the previous episode,
yeah,
right?
like this was a belief. Like quality time is important to both of us, but we were seeing it differently. And I was like, there's a difference between living together, like doing the things that you need to do, whether you're a couple or not, whether you live by yourself or not. It's great to have a companion to do it with you, but quality time is not the same. Working on your relationship, having important discussions, giving your partner intimacy and love and listening and fun adventures and whatever their love language is as important as your work, as your children, as your friends. Everything is important.
So let's
different importance to everybody. This is another thing. But if you are in a relationship, I think that it affects everything. Like if your household, if your relationship is not doing well, your relationship with your work, your kids and your friends are going to be affected. So it really is the core because it's the closest to you.
So let's refresh that a belief in relationships. A belief is like an autopilot thing. It's not something you think consciously in the moment. You might think otherwise. So be careful, because when we are inviting you to see if it, picks up for you in some way, if you feel something about it, if it makes you uncomfortable, or you like certainly think, yeah, that's what I think. Either case, you should know that it could be that you don't think that, yet your operating system, your autopilot, pushes you in that direction. So it's important to make your judgment on your answers for each one of these questions based not only on what you think, but also in what experiences you've had and what the outcome has been, because that says a lot too of what your beliefs are. Yeah,
like, is there something I can remember that happened to me before that was not good to deal with, like uncomfortable or traumatic? Or is there something about this belief that I can remember being like, shit, it was hard to deal with? Because if that is the case, then this is likely something to pay a little bit more attention to, I would say.
Yeah, for some reason, in the case of a married couple with children, many people give up partially because of this one, number 4, toxic belief. A lot of stuff is more important than spending time together.
Yeah, like this. Okay, this is a good example. Like when a couple has a baby, and the mom is so deeply in love with the baby. Like everything's the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby. Oh my goodness, my baby! I'm so in love with my baby. And dad, so tired from taking care of, and all of these things, that dad becomes less relevant. Your husband becomes your partner, or whatever you refer to them as. They become less relevant because all your attention is to this new being that you just. So
it could be a puppy.
It could be a puppy,
but it doesn't last so long.
Yeah, puppies is
they grow quickly.
But so it is. And in many cases, then, there could be the situation that you're not spending enough time with your partner. You guys aren't having enough sex. Like this, you're not listening to them. You're just like maybe complaining a lot about how you're feeling, or you're tired, or you're just talking about your kids. Like all your focus and attention has gone in that direction. So you spend less time focusing on your relationship, which matters.
Yeah. And the third one is the friend's case. Come on, guys, this is too obvious. Like you're done at work, and instead of going back home to your partner and talk, be together, do something you both enjoy, or ask about each other's day.
Yeah.
You go to a bar with your friends, and tomorrow again,
and
you
the
guys
next
stay
day,
late.
and you're late for the dinner that you guys planned, or you just don't show up.
You had a soccer game, and then you stayed late, and sorry, I didn't make it.
You didn't take your kids to their game, like
because of friends, hanging out with friends. It's a very easy. How do you call it that? It's a very repetitive pattern. It happens a lot.
And this, like we're saying, this could be something that you might believe. You might say, I don't have this belief. Like, I really believe that.
Bros before hoes.
Yeah. Or you can even say, like, I really do not have this belief, in the sense that I believe that my relationship, or whatever is more important to you, because this is your decision, but I'll just say mine. I believe that my relationship is more important than all the rest. Doesn't mean that I do not prioritize the other things from time to time, but it is the core of everything. But that doesn't mean that sometimes your behavior is in alignment with this. So that's a whole other subject on its own. But yeah, just if you feel triggered by it, pay attention to why. Is it because you don't have the belief, but you still catch yourself doing the behaviors? Because that's a different video. That's like a whole other subject.
Yeah, but definitely is coming from there, from belief systems, and what runs your autopilot.
Okay, next one.
Okay, number 5. So a toxic belief in many cases is that monogamy is the only option. So this goes back to cultural programming, and if you really take a moment to track as far back as you can the reasons why this is what you have been told since you were a little child, probably 3-4 years old, you start consuming from every angle that this is how it is.
Right? The drama, and
even cartoons and everything. It's like
everything.
The concept is created there for you already. Boom. But it has happened for thousands of years that a ton of people do not practice it. They are told so, they believe so, but that's not what they do. That's not how they behave in the end. And there has been a lot of punishment and shame and cultural.
People get divorced, and
it is absolutely
alienated.
Yeah, it is absolutely external. It has potentially nothing, potentially 100% match with what you honestly think and feel within yourself, doing your best effort to isolate the rest. Some people have to go to a silence retreat. Some people have to go to a hypnotherapy, or getting themselves in some sort of regression or relaxation, or a psychedelic with an indigenous in the mountains of Peru. There's a series of tools for those who cannot, easily identify it, but there are a series of external factors deciding this for you.
There's so many things that you can do to figure these things out for yourself. you might not have the answer, and that's I mean, for the most part, I think you're gonna change the answer many times in your life too. So,
and that doesn't mean like you go through all that analysis and backtracking and understanding and potentially learning a little bit of the history behind it too, right? Because it has like a religious aspect in most cultures, definitely in the European, American, South American, and African culture. It is more or less the same, and it's dictated by religious, moral
well, in
paradigms.
African, it's a bit different. It's more like it's more kind of the other way around. Like tribally, it was the man that had many women, but not the other way around.
Sure, but what I mean is from the culture, it's the TV and stuff there is always the same.
It's
like
always the same,
in school, it's the same. Like nobody's
same.
gonna be happy that you have two partners, right? I have two boyfriends, I have two girlfriends. Even though there can be humor potentially around it or whatever, it is publicly unaccepted.
Yeah,
it has to be one-on-one.
It is according to it has to be just one person. So that's changing. But so what the reason why this can be a toxic belief and the impact it can have is that if you don't really speak about this openly, or you do, I actually have I know of a couple that were having this situation. I spoke to somebody who was looking for help about this specific subject because he actually had been in open relationships before, and he was happy with that dynamic, and then he fell in love with a girl who was very religious, very monogamous, but he was open with her from the beginning. Monogamy is
not the only option for him.
It's not the only option for him, and actually he's tried other things, and she knew it, and they got married. They still decided to get married, not discussing the subject ever again, besides when they got into the relationship. So her belief was that it is the only option, but they both knew from the beginning, I'm getting into a relationship with someone who has the completely opposite belief, and I'm consciously choosing this. It can create a lot of toxic things in your relationship. And then there's the other case of just like talking about this, because many cases we don't know this about ourselves. So if you're getting into a new relationship, discussing it, like what is your beliefs, what are your ideas around this, because this is it can usually be toxic for relationships, especially if you're not honest about it.
It is a big deal, guys. I remember like 3 years ago, maybe less, 2.5 years ago, I ran into a TED Talk from a lady, I don't remember her name, but the title of the thing.
Sexologist, right?
She's a sexologist, and the name of her talk is Monogamish.
Monogamish, yeah.
For me, it was so interesting because it's a very soft approach to challenging the concept of monogamy without necessarily involving having sex with other people. Yeah,
nothing physical either. No physical or romantic relationship with.
It was a very interesting approach, and for us, it was the first time that we discussed this subject after 4 years of relationship. It was the first time I watched the video and I felt completely in alignment with a lot of the things they were saying. Doesn't mean I am up to that, but it was very interesting, and I felt honestly happy to share it with Sumi as soon as I watched it, because this is good stuff. Like, we can share links to videos since forever. But obviously she watched it, right? And then we sat down and had our first conversation ever about our beliefs in monogamy or
it was 4
monogamy.
years.
And we were surprised to realize how non-monogamous our views were, right? It was like, wow, that is so crazy. That doesn't mean emotionally you are culturally programmed and your autopilot runs on all these beliefs. It's important to keep that in mind. But it was very interesting, and I'm being like completely honest here. Chances are that most people are not interested in that as being the terribly strict rule that breaks relationships apart and creates divorce and children growing, with their parents separate.
Yeah, it's a very normal thing. It
happens so much
and she mentioned in the same TED Talk the percentage of people. I think this wasn't just in the US. A percentage of people who get divorced
Yeah, it's like
It was
55% something.
No, it was it was. You're right. It was like 55% of people who are married end up getting divorced because of
Cheating.
because of not having. And this is another subject. Well, I'm just gonna mention it to drop it, but we'll create a whole video about this at some point. A podcast. This is not a video. An episode. About this, which is that cheating is, and this actually should have been added to this list, so I'm just going to add it like as a mini sub-belief, is that cheating is the end of a relationship, or that cheating means that you're a terrible person.
Oh, it's number 3, the trust.
Trust is broken. Okay, so we didn't really mention it in that one, so we'll put it under this one. But that cheating is the end of a relationship, or that cheating means that this person is terrible and just like, I never want to see you again, our relationship's over, because this is a very one-sided way of looking at this. This is a very programmed way of looking at this, because
that's what you've seen in the movies.
That's what you've seen, that's what your parents have drilled into your brain, their parents did. Like, it is, from every single angle, it is wrong. And if you are not like this, if you end up cheating, or you notice that you're not super 100% in agreement with monogamy because this isn't your default, you've been taught this is wrong in everything, but there's something there that is you, there's like a version of you, could be your traumas. Remember, nothing's black and white. Everything we say is a possibility, and you got to figure this out. It's an endless journey, but it's so worth it. But anyway, so cheating doesn't necessarily mean this. It is so important to sit down with the person and look at why it happened. What could be the possible reasons from both sides? Was there something that was being kept quiet that was important? Was there something that was not being
like the baby example?
Like the baby example, you haven't had sex in 8 months after having a baby. Your husband's a man, or your partner is a person who wants to have. We're sexual beings, guys, and it is a taboo subject, but it is. We are sexual beings.
Yeah, it has to be discussed, right? The guy in that example, he has to approach his woman and say, listen, I understand the baby, but we are not having any intimacy. We're not having any sex, and it's important to me.
So that could also be another mini belief. So we could just keep dropping them here, but that sex is not important in a relationship. So I think this is in the healthy ones, actually. So, but anyway, sex is important. It's important.
And it's worth talking about.
It might be something that was taught that it isn't. Like, you just do it with one person all your life. It's something that is intimate.
And even if you do it with one person only forever, you still need to talk about it forever,
because there's
right?
things you want to try. There's things you want to, like, if you're just having it, like, the act of having sex for the sake of it, because, it's not the same as being intimate and open and talking about things. If you enjoyed it,
say it, right?
Yeah, like, I enjoyed this, or I didn't enjoy this. Please, can we try this? Like, communicate, because otherwise you can't, the spark will fade. I had this situation where someone told me, a very close friend of mine actually, he made this comment where he said that, after the first year of a relationship, it's normal to just not have so much sex anymore. Like, it's a normal thing to do. And it was mind blowing. I was like, what? Are you serious? Like, this is not...
Hell no.
I have, like, we have an amazing sex life, and it's been 6 years. It's been 6 years, and it actually gets better because we've had to become more open and honest about it over time. It would have been the same.
It's just what feels should be the normal, right? But if you look around, you will realize that is not the case. It's not a subject that is on the table so much. There's not enough honesty around that subject. No. So there tend to be negative consequences because it comes with a type of, suppression.
Yeah, there's a instant fear of judgment and rejection because culturally it is so intense. Okay, next one, guys.
Right, so that was, in any case, believing monogamy is the only option as a toxic belief. And all
there
that goes
so many
with it,
ones,
like the cheating and all of that, cool. So all of that in the monogamy area. Number 6 is jealousy. Jealousy means my relationship is strong. So let me start with this. If you've ever had a pet, a little dog or a cat, they experience jealousy. Horses, cows, if you ever, grew up in a farm or something, they get jealous for attention. It is a very normal emotion to experience. Jealousy is somewhat inevitable because it's wired in our
You cannot
mammal.
remove jealousy.
Your mammal, some people don't have it, don't get me wrong, but if you do, chances are it's a very internal response. But there is another side of it that is insecurities and stories and stuff, which is belief system. So that is the part that we're talking about here. So when you say jealousy means my relationship is strong, sometimes you don't feel drawn to display any signs of jealousy because you honestly don't care, but you pretend to be jealous because that's how you show that you care.
Or you believe you need to be the super jealous partner for your partner to actually think that you care about them. Like you need to be harassing about the people they talk to and what they do and like want to be around them.
And what about the opposite? If he doesn't get jealous,
means he doesn't care.
There's all the versions of beliefs around jealousy that are just
and I'm
not
laughing
useful.
because I had these beliefs.
So yeah, it is. It is jealousy. Yeah,
jealousy is healthy, and it's a human emotion. It's not a human emotion. It is a being emotion, like we mentioned. Mammals experience jealousy, and so I'm sure there's other types of animals that.
I think if you can develop attachment, if you can experience emotional attachment to things, you can experience jealousy by default.
So it is okay. We got it, guys. We talk too much.
And number 7, vulnerability is weakness.
Oof.
I just hear it's the opposite. It takes courage to be vulnerable because we all are, but we don't dare dealing with it.
I have to say that this one is the most important lesson I have learned in my life is to be vulnerable. Whether people actually can receive that vulnerability and can, not push it away, because that's a lot of the case. People don't want you to be vulnerable as well because vulnerability is weakness, right? So there's this like discomfort in many times with actually being vulnerable yourself, but there's a discomfort with someone being vulnerable to you and you automatically seeing it as excuses or lies or bullshit because vulnerability has this...
you're being a weakling.
Vulnerability has this very fake idea, and this one has changed my life so much. Like, there was nothing that was not improved in what has improved so far, which is still an endless journey. And that's why I care so much about this, that I have developed vulnerability. And there's not a single thing that has not been improved without this. Like,
thanks to
being
embracing vulnerability.
Being vulnerable and being like, you know what, this is me. And I'm sorry, but this is me right now. I'm aware that I suck at some things. I'm aware that I have these traumas, these pains, these things that I create, all these stories in my mind that I created about. But this is what it is. And my relationships got so much better by being vulnerable, because otherwise they were all with these walls and you couldn't be real.
When you are vulnerable, you are actually letting your sensitive emotions come out somehow, rather in a structured way, like written or spoken word, but sometimes in actions, sometimes just by dropping a couple of tears, everything in between, but being vulnerable.
Or just mentioning like, hey, this thing really made me feel this way. Like
confessing insecurity, for example, it's so hard for majority of us to come and say, remember that night we were having dinner and there was this guy that you were having this very close conversation with and laughing so much. I felt jealous. And I felt insecure, and I don't know, I tried to get distracted, and
I was having a hard time. Like, just be honest about the fact
and
that
that means nothing. Like, back to the previous one, jealousy is another belief that could be messed up, right? Not convenient for your own life in the present or in general. So for me personally, being jealous sometimes would feel wrong. So then I wanted to suppress jealousy, but then I had to be vulnerable and discuss it and say, listen, this is how I felt, and making the effort to share it, even though it feels a little bit uncomfortable in the beginning.
It needs, okay, so this is a, like we said, this might be next week's subject. Conversations are so, once it is out there, it removes the power it has over you. Like, as I have learned this repeatedly in the last 2 years, I have hit my head a few times. I've hit my head a few times. I've had to be in a situation in which I need to just talk. I just need to talk. And just talking helps so much, because when it's in my mind, I'm an overthinker. So if it's in my mind and it stays in there and I don't dare say anything to anybody, it goes in all kinds of toxic directions. And if I just gain the courage to say it, it takes away the power over me. It doesn't allow it to drive my behavior as much, my thoughts as much. Doesn't mean that it works every time, but just the practice of like,
yeah, and the vulnerability in general with conversation mixed is like a very healthy habit to develop. Yeah, because many times we are ignoring our own suffering or putting it aside, like not giving it any attention. So in that way, how do you even communicate it? How are you vulnerable about it if you don't know about it?
You need to be vulnerable with yourself first of all.
So to let it out, I mean, that comes with individual practices, like just sitting down away from the screen and everything and
just
think.
Being with yourself, be present, meditate, however you meditate.
See what comes up for you if you cannot figure it out by yourself.
Journal. I have some really cool journal prompts actually.
Like aha moments of
Yeah, at some point I'm gonna release something cool about journaling, so I'll share it with you guys for couples. It will be a couple journal. Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay, number 8, criticism is always personal. This is the correct healthy version would be criticism is a lot about that other person.
Is feedback.
It is feedback. You can use it for your own improvement, but it also is very closely related to how that person sees things and their expectations and beliefs
onto you.
So it really is not always personal. Most times it isn't. It is just someone's opinion, and you could use some of it.
I can honestly say it is never personal. I don't think it's ever personal. By means is the person is, whether it is you or it's somebody else along the way. It's not personally to you. This is very closely, like you're saying, related to the person themselves, because...
No, that I think 100%, but also a little bit is personal, because you can actually be receiving valid feedback of how you made someone else feel bad, right? So sometimes it is really personal. It's this one instance, but most times it's just
I get what you mean.
The other person is having their own opinion, and they might not be very pleased or very approving of this one thing about the relationship.
The way you see something is against what they think, so they shut it down.
So if you think about all that we've been going over already, it's part of defining that belief system around relationships. So if there are clashes, if there are like mismatches, that doesn't mean that you're not compatible and you have to break up. It just means, well, this needs agreements, right? You need to get into agreements that are flexible somewhat, and little by little settle those things for something that is more serving for both. But in the case of criticism, you can't keep these things in mind. Like, this is this person's belief systems in the relationship, and maybe we need to discuss some other things, again, conversations.
Yeah, coming to an understanding of each other as individuals.
From a place of compassion and all of these things that we always repeat. Yeah, it sounds so idealistic.
Guys, it sounds easy. No, it doesn't sound easy. What am I saying? It sounds simple, because it is simple. Like, the concept is simple. We overcomplicate everything. I overcomplicate everything. Again, I'm an overthinker, so I'm always overcomplicating. And I can honestly say that there's some very core things that make a difference in every area. Like,
also, if you're very self-critical, you are likely to be too critical with others.
Yeah, if you're critical with yourself, then you...
That's like the bar.
Or if people are super critical with you, you tend to project or repeat
be too critical on yourself.
With yourself and with other people. So if someone's super critical on you your whole life, you are more likely to be super critical on someone else. So think about who in your life has been super critical on you, and think about, because that also shapes
And you have to try and put the shield there that criticism is not personal. It's not personal.
Yeah, or your past like Ray's past relationship, his ex-girlfriend was super critical of him. Like, I have my situations in which I was like, there was a lot of super critical relationship experiences. So just see where your criticism, like if you are critical towards a person as well, like believing that criticism needs to be like harsh. And so look at how you deliver criticism, because it's healthy. It's important to share,
to communicate that feedback.
Literally constructive criticism. Constructively address, take away the blame, take away the you are wrong, take away all these like,
I can't believe you did
this to me. Just sometimes it just needs to be that understand, like, take yourself out of the situation. There's a really amazing activity for this called perceptual positioning, in which you put yourself in all three situations. You put yourself in the situation of you explaining the situation, and then you move to a different spot. Like, you physically move yourself. If you're on a chair, you move to another chair, or stand to move to another spot.
And now you're the other character.
And now you have to be the person, the other person. And you need to try and explain now from their perspective, acting as if you were in their body, literally. And then you need to be the third person that looks down on the two, not down, like not looks down, but is objective, observing the situation. And you have to give the perspective now from the third being a completely different person. So it is a very interesting activity to do.
That would be like very ingraining. And criticism is completely impersonal most times.
Yeah.
It is just the other person's projection and perception. Number 9, relationships are not hard work.
They are.
If you believe that, then you're gonna wanna be giving up.
And you're gonna move from relationship to relationship because as soon as it gets hard, you're gonna think it's not meant to be hard, and you're gonna go somewhere else.
Guys, think about this. If you just started a relationship and it's a lot of obstacles and fighting and toxic dynamics from the beginning, it is a good idea to take a step back and see what you're doing and see if it's really worth it, because no matter what type of relationship it is, it will require hard work from you.
You need to be willing to do the work with that person. You need to do the work. Be willing. You need to be willing to do the work with yourself, because it's a relationship is hard. You're gonna trigger the shit out of each other. We trigger each other so much, like not right now anymore, not as much. We still do. We always will. But we used to trigger each other so much in the beginning because we had such different beliefs about relationships.
Yeah.
Guys, we have been doing this podcast for a really long time already. Like,
it's all right. Well, so that was number 9.
Do we still want to go through the healthy ones?
But without explaining anything, just read them, because we already went through the explanation.
Okay, so
let's replace those negative with the healthy
ones. And then
ones.
what about the story time and our personal take?
I don't know. We'll have to summarize.
Okay, so we're just going to quickly go through it. I think we gave our personal opinion a lot. So let's finish this and then do the stories, and then just like one sentence each person to sum it up, and then follow the next topic. Okay, so we were on
the last one.
Okay.
All right, so relationship is going to need some work, because you as an individual forever are going to need to work on your emotional balance and learning who you are in the present and understanding the things that happen to you. Life will bring difficulty and suffering sometimes, pain.
It's inevitable.
So relationships too is a very unrealistic expectation that relationship is going to be just a little bit of work, because nothing in life is like that.
Even if it feels like it flows so wonderfully, like our relationship has always had a beautiful flow to it, but that does not for a second mean that we have not had to work on these things. Like, we have had to do the work, no matter how much it flows, no matter how much it feels so easy to love you, and if that's the only thing, if that's the only foundation of your relationship and there's no growth or improvement or work, that foundation will not be that strong for that long, because challenges will come and they will break the flow. And if you are only relying on the flow, it's going to be another toxic direction.
Potentially you're going to need help too. I mean, it's not. It says just it's not hard work, but yes, it is. It should be, so you grow, and with this struggle, you become closer together, etc. And with that comes the need to keep each other accountable. It creates like partnership. It keeps that partnership engaged, and dynamics of growing and working together. So it should be about
it adds this beautiful, beautiful extra thing, which is the admiration that you have for your partner when you watch them grow, and
you see the person you love
change over time.
Growing, becoming better at things.
I love you.
I love you, my love.
So
beautiful. Right, so number 10 in the list, please. So we finally ended.
Guys, we talked too much. So sorry.
Conversations, there you have it again.
Your partner, number 10. Your partner should know what you need without you having to say anything. No, please, unless we are mind readers, which none of us are. Maybe some of us are. We never know. but generally, we are not mind readers, which means that it is really difficult to be able to expect your partner to know what it is that they are thinking or feeling if they are not saying it. Like, this is something that I used to get super upset about in my relationships, getting upset because my partner didn't know that I cared. Like, I would get upset with Ray in the beginning because he would offer people things and not me. And I was like, but you should know that I want something that you should know this. You should know. Why would you do something like that? How could you do that? You should know this.
And so the healthy version would be like, your partner should know what you need, and because of that, you should say something about it. You should communicate
your partner should not know anything. Your partner...
No, they should know, but because you tell them.
Your partner should know because you communicate, yes. So,
maybe they didn't listen, but they should know because you communicated it. No, they should know because they should.
Because, we've been together for 6 years. You should know. Well, no, that's not the case, guys.
Right. So, I mean, we had like a list of the 10 healthy beliefs, which in theory the opposite of the ones we went over.
None of all of them are actually the opposite.
Okay.
They're not the opposite.
But let's just not get into them. Just read them.
We're gonna read them. But the other ones, the toxic ones, we felt the need to go into it, and I think we gave you the opposite already. So these are not the opposite. Some of them are, but for the most part, they are just different healthy beliefs. Healthy beliefs that, again, similar from different places, and some of them are ours, and
11.
Some are others. Okay, so let's go. We're gonna do 2-2, so just go for it.
And I just read them, dude.
Okay, so number 1 is communication is key. Number 2 is understanding, compassion, and acceptance for your partner and the differences the two of you have. So having that compassion for you being different people. Different because you're a guy, because you're a man and woman, or because you have different cultures, you come from different cultural backgrounds. The differences, there are differences. So that is like a key thing I just wanted to add a little for that one. Number 3 is it is good for your partner to change. Again, change is essential for life, guys, essential for life. We're only human, mistakes happen, is number 4. And so do arguments. So mistakes and arguments are a normal part of life. Again, remember we mentioned earlier, it's
healthy to think that
it's healthy to think that mistakes happen. Like, we are no one in the world is never gonna make a mistake. Like, I made a few mistakes when I was 20, and then now I'm fine forever, and I'm never gonna do it again. It's unrealistic, and it causes toxicity. 5, honesty is the best policy. No matter how painful, no matter how scary, honesty. talking, communicating openly, like we mentioned before. Number 6, individuality within a relationship. Again, we are two different people completely.
Have your individual goals.
Have your individual goals, your individual beliefs, your individual expectations, hobbies, friends. Be an individual person on your own and have your relationship dynamics.
It's a positive thing to pursue.
Yeah, because you had a journey. Whether you're gonna be with this person or not, you have a journey. You have a journey, and they have a journey, and you both got to go on your journey. Whether they're not in your life anymore, whether you break up, you're still gonna keep going on your journey, and then there's gonna be someone else that comes. So your journey, always your journey, and whoever's with you on your journey, complement each other. Number 7, having fun together. Self-explanatory. Believe that it is important to have fun together. Like, you're never too old. You don't need to be super mature now that you're 40 instead of 20. I mean, there's some things, obviously, that might not be good for your health or whatever. But, like, if you have fun hobbies, or you want to be, like, you have funny traditions or cute things about your relationship, like, they don't need to grow out. You don't need to grow out of them. If they change naturally and you develop new ones, cool. But always have the fun that you have with your partner. That,
again, a healthy thing to pursue.
A healthy thing
having fun together as a
yeah.
couple.
It keeps the love alive. The importance of sex. So it's a healthy belief to have
that sex is important.
That sex is important in your relationship. Don't overlook this one, guys. Alone time. Alone time is super important.
It's number 9.
With number 9, similar to individuality, but actually alone time. Spending time by yourself, doing your own thing.
Because individuality could be you doing things with others.
Yeah.
You and your music group, you and your baseball team, whatever.
And also individuality is seeing things differently. So you don't need to become one person. You are still separate people.
Yeah, you can even have different political views on certain things. It's perfectly... Many people would be like, you are a leftist and she is a right, for example, or you are this and she is that, or he is that. It is like an unhealthy version of this. In this case, it is different. That's positive. Yeah. If it's different, it's positive because you have them to practice tolerance and other good things, right? So
and also because you, like I mentioned, you're gonna be yourself regardless of whether the person is with you or not. So your journeys, your mistakes, your individuality is all of that. The times you mess up, the mistakes you make, the everything that comes with you as a human.
And then number 10 is like a wrap up. Right?
Yeah, number 10 is just kind of, this is an important overall goal that is seen as healthy, which is learning and growing together in having goals of your own and as a couple. So like Ray mentioned.
Like for us, this podcast was a couple.
It was a couple goal. Here we are.
Doing a couple thing that we enjoy, that we have fun.
Much, guys. We talk so much.
Maybe you're busy working or doing something repetitive, and this is what you're listening to. So thank you for that good decision. That means you're interested.
So taking a deeper look into what your relationship beliefs are also mean asking yourself what you really want from a relationship. So with the context of everything we've spoken about, what is truly yours? Remove expectations of other people, what other people have told you, other people's beliefs. What is it to you? And then I just think I'll share my personal take. There have been a lot of beliefs in my life that were created from all kinds of aspects, from different experiences, different dynamics that I witnessed, what I consumed when I was younger, what I was exposed to, and the relationships I had that were toxic because I attracted toxic people into my life, kept building on my negative beliefs. And when I could finally break the cycle and allow myself to open up to someone who was like Ray is, because I couldn't do that before, all those beliefs I was hanging on to from my past experiences were not positive. So they didn't serve me. When I finally got to a point in which I could open up to a person like Ray I had all these negative beliefs around relationships, and they were going against my best interest. And changing, not changing, paying attention to and understanding what it is that your beliefs are and what was created by people, like everything we've discussed here. If you look at all those things, if you answer these questions, we'll drop in the bottom because we wanted to answer them, but we don't have time because we talk too much. So we're not going to answer these questions for you guys, but we kind of explain.
We'll share them.
We'll share them in the comments so you can do them yourselves.
Maybe we can leave it in the comments ourselves.
Yeah, we can also leave our answers in the comments.
Right. So
basically. So basically, I just want to wrap up by saying that the beliefs that we have are so vitally important based on how we act and how we create our relationship dynamics and what we allow into our space on a daily basis. So focusing on those things, no matter how small they can be, paying attention to, did any of the things that we mentioned to you, any of those beliefs, did they trigger? Were they uncomfortable? And just looking at them, just paying attention to what they are and how you can turn them into something more positive. And there's many ways of doing this, like I mentioned. There's so many different ways of doing this. Ray mentioned ways of doing this. There's everything. You just got to find what works for you.
Well, thank you for sharing your personal take. I would like to share mine, just to add on to all the little bits that we were just for so long adding into each one of the toxic beliefs. I want to add on to that. My own experience around it has been the very journey of self-discovery, because I don't necessarily have a habit of looking inside. I have always been abstracted in technology and computers and that nature of it's so mentally demanding that it would remove the need of looking inside and understanding why I am the way I am, etc. So certain life circumstances pushed me into starting to understand these things. Certain talks on YouTube, literally like Terence McKenna or this Monogamish, they have invited me to look inside, know myself, understand myself, and on top of that, share it in my relationship so that we can make honest and conscious agreements for what serves us. So it is very fundamental part of who you are in a relationship, what your beliefs are and where they come from, and going through that journey of discovering it, understanding it, being honest with yourself about what it really is that you think it should be instead, communicating that to your partner, see how they react to it, right? Hopefully it is a conversation and curiosity.
There's different ways of this, like there's the paper way or the video way or the voice note way. There's different ways of communicating.
Maybe you want to become a vegan and you don't dare telling your partner because they come from the butcher family, or who knows, right? It can be anything. It can be the typical, but you know what I mean. Things. So anyways, that is what I think is such a pillar in the whole process of having a good relationship, that taking the time to look inside and figuring out what are your beliefs, where they come from, etc. Now that you understand the impact they have, then you need to figure them out. You need to communicate them, and if you need to tweak some of those, there are ways to get there, so you can dive deeper.
Yeah, I know. It's easy to feel like there's so much information, and you don't really know how to apply these things. But there is just that active presence in it, the active wanting to try and keeping it. The more you practice it, the more you're going to keep it in mind, the more at some point it's just going to become like all those other toxic behaviors that we all have that are programmed into us. We will just reprogram what is present for us now. So, yeah. So guys, if you enjoyed listening to this very lengthy podcast about relationship beliefs, please subscribe or follow wherever you are right now. Please drop a comment and share with us, what was your aha moment? What was it that you maybe felt uncomfortable with? If you're actually comfortable to share that, maybe you're not, that's okay.
Maybe what you agreed with so much.
What you agree with, what you disagree with. Like, we just want to know everything. Like, we want to get this podcast to a point in which it is a discussion and we can answer your questions and we can just discuss. And we are both open to learning different ways. So share with us what has worked for you.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see what a different couple thinks or beliefs or practices. So it would be super rich to have you guys participate down there in the comment section.
And if you feel unsure about anything, like you would like some advice or guidance on something, drop it in the comments to reach out to us personally, whatever you feel more
send a
comfortable
message
doing.
in Instagram or whatever. I mean, it doesn't need to be public, but the conversation is important. So yeah, please reach out if you need to, if something landed for you, if you have questions, etc. There are the questions down in the description where you can, if you're really interested, and I strongly recommend it, go through those questions and figure yourself out, right? Like, know thyself. It would be a great first step if you haven't. And even if you have, they constantly change.
So it's important.
So it's important to know yourself about belief. What are your beliefs in this relationship?
Who am I right now? Gary Vee, I love it. He has a video about that. Who am I right now?
So ask yourself those questions. If you had something in this episode that landed for you, especially, I think it's a very interesting exercise. And if you do, again, just reach out and share it. It would be really positive to know it's doing something positive for you. It's our main motivation here.
Yeah, we're just, like we mentioned, guys, we're sharing what has helped us along our journey. So next week's topic is going to be, are you down for a conversation?
Yeah, intimate, warm, honest conversations.
Yes, intimate, warm, open, vulnerable, loving conversations. And how they don't need to be so scary. And how you can improve them a little bit. Like how we improve them. Our stories of what has improved around communication. So just talking about it.
So that's it. That's what we're going to be discussing next episode. Thank you so much for staying all this long. If you did. Yeah, it's a pleasure to share with you our opinions and ideas and what we find out there on the internet, valuable information. So thank you for tuning in and see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a beautiful week.
Adios.